Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Plymouth United Church this Sunday morning. Glad to have you with us. And I'm glad to be back with you. I have been away on vacation the last 2 months. A big thank you to Reverend Lori Keaton and to Jeff Meckler, who filled in for me on the 2 Sundays that I was gone. They did a fantastic job. I had a great time in the Midwest visiting family and friends, and it's good to be home, good to be with you today. Again, glad to have you joining us, and I invite you to bring yourselves fully to this time and to this place as we center ourselves together. Take a breath and find where that settles in your body. Breathe again. Where do you need the breath to go? Focus on the part of your physical self that could really use your support and your love, and breathe into that place. And imagine God's love being poured into you, filling you up, and the love of this community being poured into you and filling you up. From that spot in your physical self that could use it the most, into every aspect of your physical being, enlivening you, centering you, and helping you to be your best self with all of the strengths that you have and all the weaknesses that you have, because they're all true. And breathe again and see where that lands in your thinking. Where do you need to breathe to inspire your thinking? And then when you exhale, what do you need to exhale out of your thoughts? And imagine God's love pouring into the thoughts that need the most inspiration, that need the most support, that need the strongest foundation. Imagine this love of the community being poured into those thoughts as well, expanding into every area of your thought to the strongest, most clear thought that you have, to the thought that is really struggling to be made known, to be able to get to the in-depth part of that thought that you're trying to think through. And breathe in again. Find where it lands emotionally, into the strongest area of your emotions and into the weakest area of your emotions. Breathe in, inspire, and exhale, knowing that your emotions are an essential part of who you are, and that God wants to pour God's love into your emotional self, beginning today with the emotion that feels the weakest, the most vulnerable maybe, the most broken. Allowing the love of the community gathered to also be inspiring your emotional landscape, and exhaling out what needs to be exhaled out. Reminding ourselves that we are full people, complex people, able to hold all kinds of emotion at the same time, breathing in, breathing out into our emotional landscape, finding the fullness of ourselves, and then breathing in again into our spirit. Where does that land? How is the spiritual aspect of your being, and where do you find its strength? And where do you find it at its weakest point? And can you imagine God's love being poured into your spiritual self at its weakest point at its most vulnerable point. Breathing in, exhaling out what needs to be exhaled, and allowing that love to flow from those weak points into your most strong points. Finding the fullness of yourself integrated with your body and your emotions, with your mind and with your spirit. Centering yourself into this time where we get to create together this sacred and holy moment. Let us bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place.
Please join me in our responsive call to worship. A generation goes and a generation comes.
But the earth remains forever.
The sun rises and the sun goes down.
The sun is faithful to return in the morning.
The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north.
The wind is faithful to make its circuits around the earth.
All streams run into the sea, yet the sea is not full.
The streams are faithful to continue to flow.
Sometimes it feels like everything is pointless.
Sometimes we understand the rhythm of life.
We come together to search for meaning.
We come together as people of faith.
Time with the children!
Hi kids, I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. It's good to be here with you. I hope that you're doing well. I understand that some schools have started and some schools have not. I don't know where you are on the trajectory of being in school or still being on vacation or being in school at home. So I would ask you all those questions if I was with you in person today. We're going to get to be in person in a couple months, I guess it is, maybe less than that, 6 weeks, something like that. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that. Today, in the meantime, we'll continue talking this way. We're going to talk today about what we call unity and diversity. And one of the ways to understand unity in diversity is to remember that you, with your siblings, your friends, and your family, you have a lot of things in common. And those are the easy places sometimes to be with one another, where we have things in common, when we like to eat the same kind of food or read the same kind of book, or we work at problems in the same kind of way, and that can be easy. But what if everything was the same? What if everybody was just like you? Now, initially you might say, that'd be great. But think about it. It'd be a little boring. Don't you think it'd be a little boring? I think it'd be a little boring. I want people in my life who are a little bit different than me. Sometimes who are a whole lot different than me. Because that's way more interesting than me just looking into the mirror every day practically and just being friends with myself and just everything being the same. Diversity is great. It's beautiful and it's fun. So sometimes we think, well, that person's way different than me, and so I don't have anything in common with them, and so I'm not going to be their friend. What are we missing out on when we do that? We're missing out on a whole lot. Now, truthfully, we can't be friends with absolutely everybody, because sometimes we just don't get along for one reason or another, or maybe there's just not enough time in the day to be friends with everybody. So we have to deal with that as well. But to not get to know somebody because they're different than us, we miss out on a lot of really good stuff. There's a lot of ways that we can connect with one another and learn from one another and maybe even change our mind about something because we learned something from someone else. So I want you to seek out this year, this school year, folks that have something different from you about them so that you can have a more exciting life and so that you can understand God better, because God made us all and God has done incredible things in God's creation, in all of God's creation, not just the people, but everywhere you look, there's something exciting that's different. So I hope that you make friends with people this year in school and where you go and in the communities that you're in that aren't just like you, so that you're not just looking in the mirror practically and just being friends with yourself all the time. Be friends with those that have something different to share and offer up your own uniqueness, your own individuality to your friends as well. Would you join your hearts with mine in prayer? Oh God, we thank you for all the ways that we think alike and play alike and work on things alike, and all the ways that have some easiness to them. And we thank you for all the ways that we can learn from each other's differences, that we are diverse one from another. We thank you for different experiences, for ways that we can share stories with each other and get to know each other better and have more fun, have more beauty, have more depth. Help us to see each other for who we truly are and to love each other for the way that you made us. We love you, God, and we know that you love us. And all God's children said, Amen.
Our biblical witness today is from the letter that Paul wrote to the Galatians, chapter 2, 1 through 10. After 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking Titus along with me. I went up in response to a revelation. Then I laid before them, though only in a private meeting with the acknowledged leaders, the gospel that I proclaim among the Gentiles, in order to make sure that I was not running and had not run in vain. But even Titus, who was with me, was not compelled to be circumcised, though he was a Greek. But because of false believers secretly brought in, who slipped in to spy on the freedom we have in Christ Jesus, so that they might enslave us, we did not submit to them, even for a moment, so that the truth of the gospel might always remain with you. And from those who were supposed to be acknowledged leaders, what they actually were makes no difference to me. God shows no partiality. Those leaders contributed nothing to me. On the contrary, when they saw that I had been entrusted with the gospel for the uncircumcised, just as Peter had been entrusted with the gospel for the circumcised, for God, who worked through Peter, making him apostle to the circumcised, also worked through me in sending me to the Gentiles. And when James and Cephas and John, who were acknowledged pillars, recognized the grace that had been given to me, they gave Barnabas and I the right hand of fellowship, agreeing that we should go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised. They ask only one thing, that we remember the poor, which was actually what I was eager to do.
Captain's log, stardate 50893.5. The moment I have dreaded for nearly 6 years has finally arrived. The Borg, our most lethal enemy, have begun an invasion of the Federation. And this time there may be no stopping them.
We have it in visual range. A Borg cube on course 0, Mark 215. Speed warp 9.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile. We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
Our theme this month is Unity in Diversity. It's the theme that Council voted on to be our focus for the year. And I really appreciate Reverend Laurie and Jeff Meckler addressing this important topic when they led our services while I was on vacation. It's a core value of Plymouth, easily seen through our four voices. Now, Plymouth is a predominantly white Christian congregation, which means that in most circles, we are a congregation of privilege. We're also a congregation that celebrates families and folks of all kinds. We're open and affirming. We are a wise congregation for mental health, and we're continuing to work on our status to become designated and accessible to all congregation. These aren't just badges that we collect and then forget about them. Our designations, the ones that we have now and the ones we're working toward, are reminders to us about our core values of resistance to the oppressive nature of what's normative and centered. In Star Trek, the Borg represent all that's harmful about amassing power for power's sake. They colonize other species and worlds, assimilating them by adding the culture's uniqueness to their own and erasing all the distinctiveness of each individual. Those assimilated are called drones. Borg's strength and power are impressive. They terrorize almost all who get in their way. But all they have is power. Creativity is irrelevant. Death is irrelevant. Freedom is irrelevant. Diversity is irrelevant. Love is irrelevant. The tagline of the Borg is "You must comply." The idea of unity and diversity might seem like a feel-good pursuit. But it's actually a hard-won ideal which takes reflection, confidence, humility, and openness. Unity is not assimilation. Diversity is not about competing values. For me, unity and diversity means that our foundation of relationship rests on the overlaps of our similarities, while at the same time appreciating the diverse ways we understand the world and go about things differently. I chose the reading from Galatians today because it's one I find great value in, and because it doesn't get read often. Paul had been ministering for 14 years, following the call he heard in his heart from God. He has experienced pushback from all sides, city officials, high-standing citizens, and church leaders who are also following Jesus. His approach was different. His vision was different. The people he was called to were different. It rankled the higher-ups. After 14 years of this, he went back to Jerusalem to build bridges, to connect, and to find some unity. You can hear in the letter how it went, that there was some trouble, and that he didn't entirely trust them. In fact, there were some there he considered intentionally and maliciously oppositional, wolves hiding in sheep's clothing. He and those with him resisted their attempts to assimilate them. They stood their ground, relying on what they knew their call in life to be about. That wasn't all they did, though. They continued to work to build the bridge they came to build, without compromising their integrity or character. Diversity is one of the most important avenues of strength. For instance, while gold is beautiful by itself and prized for its purity, it's a weak and soft metal. Adding another metal like copper makes it more durable and stronger. This is true of many things and also true of us, we humans. We are better and stronger when we aren't the same. We learn new ways of adapting by listening to each other's stories and experiences. Our creativity is inspired by each other's diversity. And we are just simply more interesting when we aren't all the same. The pull to assimilate is strong. Have you heard the phrase, go along to get along? I sure did when I was a young adult. Don't make waves, don't make a fuss, agree so that you don't get noticed. That's different than building bridges. When dominant cultures and powers of oppression would tell us that we may as well give up because resistance to them is futile, we have to remember the truth. Resistance is vital. Resistance is life-giving, not arguments for the sake of arguing. Not conflict that drives energy into a negative whirlwind, but resistance against going along to get along, while trying to figure out how we might build bridges to share our lives with one another. In the letter of Paul, I get the impression that he had to say no to the leaders in Jerusalem, maybe over and over again. No, we won't require the Gentiles to be circumcised. No, we won't require them to adopt food laws. After resisting, they finally found something to say yes to. Paul writes, they asked only one thing, that we remember the poor, which was actually what I was eager to do. There's a saying that's been attributed to both St. Augustine of Hippo, who was alive between the years of 354 and 430, and John Wesley, who was alive between the years of 1703 and 1791. The quote is this: in essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty. In all things, charity. An ancient clarion call for unity in diversity. Sometimes we have to make compromises in order to get things done. There's nothing wrong with that. But we must always resist complying to oppressive powers which strip us of our uniquity. Diversity helps us grow, internally and externally. Diversity bonds us to one another in a way that similitude can't. Diversity is beautiful and expressive of the essence of the divine creator. I hope you will share in the comments ways that you see the strength of diversity in all creation, from human beings to waterways to plants and animals, and beyond, whatever you can think of. Also, how you understand resistance to assimilation to be life-giving and vital for yourself personally and for your community. I would love to see that in the comments as well. And with that, my friends, peace, diversity, and unity amongst us all.
Open my eyes that I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me.
Place in my hands the wonderful key that shall unclasp and set me free.
Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my ears that I may hear, that I may hear voices of truth thou sendest clear, thou sendest clear. And while the scriptures fall on my ear, everything false will disappear. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my mouth and let me bear.
Open my mouth and let me bear.
Let thee award truth everywhere.
Let me award truth everywhere.
Open my heart and let me
Prepare
repair.
love.
Love with thy children lost to share. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Silently I wait for thee, Spirit divine.
Would you join your hearts in prayer with mine? God of us all and God of all creation, help us to see your purpose. Help us to hear with your ears and appreciate the world around us and appreciate each other. Give us the confidence to be who we are, the way that you created us, or even with the will that you've given us, the way that we've chosen to be. Because you are not a micromanager with strings on all of our limbs, making us dance for you. You give us choices. You give us gifts and talents. You give us agency. and energy. Help us to live in confidence with who we are so that we can have open hearts for others who live in confidence, being who they are. And help us to enjoy each other thoroughly, honestly, with authenticity. Help us to honor you and to give you glory, to praise you because of the way that you have made so many different things, so many different ways of being and understanding this life. And may that be our strength, our hope, our guide, and our inspiration. And because we desire so strongly to see ourselves and to see each other in this community, let us lift up our voices together in these words of prayer. We are holy and beloved by God. Because of this, we clothe ourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. We bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, we forgive each other, just as forgiveness and grace have been given us. Above all, we clothe ourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. We let holy peace rule in our hearts, to which we are called in this one community of Christ's body. As thankful people, we share our lives with one another, sing praises, and pray. May the hopes in our hearts and the work we do in ministry add to the love in the world. Blessed be.
Morning, Plymouth friends. September 5th is our goal to be back in church worshiping in person, as well as live streaming for the folks who watch from home. Service will begin at our previous time of 10 o'clock a.m. We have a couple work days coming up to help us get ready. We have a sign-up sheet on Facebook, in Thursday's Thoughts, and on our app. Let's spruce up this church together. The work days are Saturday, August 7th, and Saturday, August 14th. We'll begin at 9 a.m. and then just go until we're tuckered out. It's helpful if you sign up so that we know how many people we'll have, but if you forget to sign up, please come anyway. Many hands make light work. During July, the book study group is taking a break from meeting, but we'll resume our book on play in August, and we hope you join us then. We hope you've been enjoying Zoom Fellowship, a time for visiting and chatting with friends on Sunday mornings at 10 before the service begins. You can find the link in Thursday's Thoughts, on Facebook, and in the Plymouth app. We hope you have downloaded the new app. There's so many ways to interact and be connected through it. As you explore its functions, please give us your feedback and the ways that you imagine the app to be helpful as a ministry of the church. We know many people have been coming to online services that we have never met. We can't wait for the church to open and to meet you in person. If you're considering joining Plymouth, please contact Pastor Mac at pastor@plymouthunited.org.
Each week we collect two offerings. One is for the church, which goes into our general fund for the running of the church and our ministries. The second is the loose offering, which goes to a designated charity, which changes each week. Our loose offering for today will go to Interfaith Worker Justice, which is a national network that builds collective power by advancing the rights of workers through unions, worker centers, and other expressions of the labor movement, and by engaging diverse faith communities and allies in joint action, from grassroots organizing to shaping policy at the local, state, and national levels. If you would like to give to our general fund, to the loose offering, to the systems upgrade campaign, or all of them, you can use bill pay from your bank, send us a check, or use push pay from your app, or according to the directions on your screen. As always, thank you for supporting Plymouth and the ministries of the loose offering.
Praise God
Please join me in our responsive offertory prayer. Every generous act of giving comes from love.
We are doers of our faith and not merely hearers.
This is a religion that is pure and undefiled before God.
It is to care for orphans and widows in their distress.
Jesus taught, healed, and fed the crowds.
He blessed their bodies and their spirits.
Together, we seek to do the same.
O God, bless these gifts to make a difference to people in need. Amen.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. God, empower me to be a witness for you, acting boldly in your name, seeking justice where there is hurting, offering hope where there is pain. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
And now, my friends, it is time to go from this moment to whatever it is that you have next. I hope that you are blessed by this moment that we've co-created today. I hope that you have found meaning in the sharing of this time together. And I hope that the rest of your week, you find God in surprising places. Not just around the corner, not just along the path, but as you reflect upon yourself and you start to fall in love with yourself more deeply than you ever have before, because you have found the center of sacredness and holiness in your own uniqueness, in your own way of living, and because you have the confidence to see that, you're able to connect with people in ways that you never have before. Find God in that center. Find what is holy and sacred in those connections, in those types of communions, in the creation of community in that way. And in that, go in peace and as peacemakers.